Khayaṃ, virāgaṃ, amataṃ paṇītaṃ, yadajjhagā sakyamunī samāhito, tena dhammena samāthi kiñci, idampi dhamme ratanaṃ paṇītaṃ, Etena saccena suvatthi hotu. The destruction of the taints, lack of desire, the deathless state, or the lofty deathless state, which the composed or the calmed Sakyan sage obtained. There is not anything equal to this Dharma. We're going to come back to Dharma in a minute. Also, this lofty jewel is in the Dharma. By this truth, may there be well-being. So in the beginning here, in this first gatha, we get just a list of nouns and this one adjective. It's and all of these nouns are in the accusative. They're in the, I don't know why, dear listener, whenever I want to say neuter, I say accusative. So these are all in the nominative neuter. This is just listing some nouns. This first one, Khayaṃ, is the destruction. And we have to understand, just by itself, we just have the word destruction, but it's usually meant or taken in the phrase like the destruction of the taints or the defilements. Virāgaṃ, this is kind of freedom from, lack of, rāga, freedom from passion, absence of desire, or the Pali English Dictionary tells us emancipation. If we're free from desire, that is a goal. I think sometimes in English and maybe in other like European languages, Romance languages, a lack of passion, that's seen as something that is not seen as a good thing, the way passion is sometimes used. Here, passion is being used as a way of describing desire and kind of hatred and greed and things that our 4 or 3-year-old ego wants to grab and have power over and sort of hoard and take control of. That's the sort of passion that's the sort of passion that's being discussed here. And rāgaṃ, and the virāgaṃ is freedom from that type of passion. None of that is very much use to us who seek emancipation. Then we have amataṃ. Now, if you've watched I should say the 20 of you who've watched verse 21 of the Dhammapada on daily Pali reading, this came up there. So amataṃ is the negated mataṃ, and this root is mer. I don't know if you can be like that, which gives us in, say, Latin, mortis, death, and in English, a word like mortician or mortal. So the deathless. And we probably can understand the deathless state. Now also in that verse, or in that episode on that verse, we talked about the Bhakti Sutras and how Prem Prakash had mentioned that amataṃ is also the basic meaning in Sanskrit, it would be amrtaṃ, is this nectar of immortality. So the idea is that this amataṃ is something that nourishes us. It's not just a vague kind of deathless state. Not that obtaining the state would not be vague, but talking about it might be. So we can also understand it as something like that state is something that sustains us. It would give us nourishment. And, at least in a certain poetic way of talking, it would grant immortality. And that's kind of what this means. And then I take this word paṇītaṃ, which precious or lofty. I'm taking it specifically with amataṃ, but it could go with all of these words, that they are all, we could understand destruction, lack of passion, the deathless state, understood, all of which are lofty. So that's another way. We just get this list in Pali. So it's I don't want to say it's like word salad. I mean that in a good way. It's just these words, and we can kind of understand them in a many-layered way. So the next gatha here, the next clause, we have yadajjhagā. Now this is, when I first looked at this, I don't know, I guess because of this long A, I sort of thought that it might be some kind of noun. But it's not. Just a little reflection. It's really yad plus ajjhagā. So yad is our neuter. And in this case, it's actually accusative, but we wouldn't know. The form is the same, neuter nominative or neuter accusative singular. And in this case, it's going to be accusative. And why is that? Because this verb, ajjhagā, is the third person singular preterite or aorist. So the Pali English Dictionary, if you just look up ajjhagā, you'll get, it mentions the third singular preterite, which is a simple past tense. And it's from the verb adhigacchati. If you look up adhigacchati, you'll see that form listed as an aorist. So this verb means to understand, to acquire, to obtain, to get to. So this is third person singular, and it has a subject expressed. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But just keep in mind that this is a transitive verb, and this yad is the object. And that's why this is in the accusative case, or that's how we would understand it. Which he or she or it, and we'll get to the subject in a minute, obtained. So it's this yad is standing for like each one of these, not the plurality. It's just kind of standing for the basic kind of abstract neuter sense, which I shouldn't say it's not standing for the plurality. It's not in grammatically plural, but it could kind of stand. It's standing for all of these. And I apologize for how muddled that description was. So this he, she, or it, by itself, it makes sense, but we have the subject here expressed. And it's sakyamunī. Most of us have come across this. Sometimes in Sanskrit, it would be Shakyamuni. This is one of the words for the Buddha. Sakya is the Buddha's clan. That was like the family that he was from. Sometimes clan in English these days doesn't have a great sound, certainly in American English. And Muni means sage. So we could put this together like the Sakyan sage or the sage of the Sakyans, or we could just leave it as Sakyamuni. I kind of like the Sakyan sage. And this Sakyan sage is further described as samāhito. Now that's a past participle from samādahati, collected, settled, composed. I think the Buddha tells us to develop samadhiṃ bhaveta, because the calmed mind, cittaṃ samāhitaṃ. And, yata bhutaṃ pajanati, sees things as they are. So this comes up. I like the word calm, but we can think along these lines here: collected, settled, composed. So this right here, this is sort of the goal of the teaching, of the practice. And this little gatha here is telling us which the historical Buddha obtained. He reached this state, or these states, and obviously was able to communicate that to us, to the world. So our next gatha, we have to kind of understand this. We see na. Now, this is going to negate a verb, and the verb we don't get until in here. And if we were to go back to verse 3, we would see samaṃ atthi, na no samaṃ atthi. Here we just, because of the exigencies of the meter, we have to understand this samādahati as samaṃ atthi. They've just had to collapse it to get the meter to work out correctly. And so we can understand this as, again, samaṃ. So I'll put this here. Just keep in mind that's not actually how it's pronounced. Not equal, or I'm getting ahead of myself. There is not kiñci. And kiñci, we said from before, is the indefinite. It's an indefinite pronoun. So it's not what, but whatever. Or in this case, anything. This would be the accusative, nominative, accusative singular. So there is not anything equal to this dharma. And just like in the last one where it was tathagatena, we have an instrumental case. Here this is the demonstrative pronoun. This, and it's a singular instrumental, dhammena, this dharma. And I will hold off just one more time until we get here to actually start to talk about dharma. I'm purposely not translating it just yet. So there's nothing equal to this dharma, or if you wanted to preserve that instrumental sense with this dharma. And I think we could we can understand in Pali, this P is just kind of listing, like it's a bullet point, and we had that before. So we're getting a lot of cases where idampi, ratanaṃ, paṇītaṃ is located. I don't know, we could say it's also, or we can just kind of maybe set it aside. It doesn't impact the meaning a huge amount. So I put these in blue just so we can understand. Again, demonstrative pronoun, neuter, nominative singular, idampi, ratanaṃ, paṇītaṃ. This lofty jewel, and then we have to understand the form of the verb to be, like hotu, dhamme, is in the dharma. So we'll take just a second here and sort of explore what this can mean. Dharma in the singular is often taken to mean the teaching. It can mean nature, something that's true. Bhikkhu Bodhi, I think, says what's true and good. I like the idea of, it's not really a matter of like, I like to understand this as the teaching. But sometimes I think that puts it, I don't know that that's really capturing the full sense. And so lately, and dear listener, I would love to hear your comments on this, I've come to understand Dharma as the way things are. Not the way we think they are, but the way things actually are. And of course, the Buddha has a teaching about the way things are. So you could think about these two things, but the teaching about, the Dharma, the teaching is about the way things are, and it's to help us see and experience how things are. So this lofty or precious jewel is in the way things actually are. So I didn't mention it last time, but thinking about like treasure and material wealth and material goods, obviously we have this later, it'll be like 5 centuries later, Jesus will have a teaching on this about store your treasures up in heaven. And that's what is under discussion here. And that came up obviously in verse 3 as well. The idea that what we should really value isn't, or the most lofty, the most exalted sort of treasure isn't something that we can really like lay our hands on. It isn't the thing or the things that we typically think of as being valuable. So the most lofty, most exalted, precious treasure is in the way things actually are, not in the way we tend to wake up and just go about kind of in our dream state, our unawakened, our non-Buddha state. So when we awaken to things as they are, then we will find this lofty jewel and this lofty exalted treasure. And I think that's an extremely beautiful way to put this and way to think about it. And it's something that can help, I don't want to say spur, that's not good imagery, but it can help give us a little more inspiration to seek out or to plumb the depths of the teaching. And then here in our last gatha, it's exactly the same as before, so I won't go into it much here, just Etena, saccena, by this truth may there be well-being.